Where did I go wrong? When did I breach your trust?
To be best for him, the state, his family, the GOP, and the country if he stepped aside. I just think there is no good outcome for Mr. Moore.
I think he should step aside.
Is the burden on Moore to prove these false versus someone to prove that these are true in this situation? Or do you believe these allegations to be true?
I believe the women, yes.
855-40-LAURA. Of course, there have been more women who came out. You have a mall official, Greg Leggett, who came out and said, look, Roy Moore was basically banned from the mall. Do we have that sound, Jamesy?
We talked about other people, and then somebody said, and don't forget about Roy Moore. And I asked, what about Roy Moore? And they said, well, he's banned from the mall. I said, why is he banned? And the police officer wouldn't tell me. He said, if you see him, let me know. I'll take care of it.
So what did you eventually learn as to the reason why he was banned from the mall?
I was told that he was bothering girls in the mall.
In what way?
I don't know exactly. That he was approaching them and talking to them.
Girls, when you're saying girls...
Teenage girls.
Teenage girls at the mall. Could everybody be lying? And I guess everybody could just be making it up. But it's a no-win situation. It seems like it's a. I mean, I hate the fact this is happening to Alabama. I hate the fact that this is happening at all. People of Alabama do have a right to determine who their own senator is going to be. Michael Knight is a pastor at New Haven Church in Southside, Alabama, and he's with us now, and he has some thoughts on this. We thought we'd bring in a man of the cloth. Michael, good to talk to you. How are you?
I'm doing well, Laura. Thank you for having me on the air. And I would like to say first, I want to preface anything I would say today with this statement, that I do stand firmly against all forms of sexual abuse and crime. I believe America as a whole would agree with me on that point.
So what about Roy Moore? What do we do with Roy Moore?
Well, regarding Roy Moore, I like to look at his situation like I would any human being, and that is that the law of the land is we are innocent until proven guilty. And I feel like I made a post yesterday on Facebook, and what I had stated was it has concerned me greatly because of the Republican establishment, and I am a Republican, so I want to say this as a Republican, but I feel like the pressure for months has been totally against Roy Moore. And we also saw a huge push with millions of dollars to try to get Luther Strange as our Republican nominee first. And when that failed, now that these accusations have come out, it seems that all of them are, backpedaling and turning against Roy Moore. But locally, those who have known him for decades know him to be a man of great integrity and a man of God. And, unless these accusations are proven, I support him 100%.
Well, the problem is, as in all of these cases, unless you have a blue dress, there's no proving anything. And you make an allegation, and where do you go to get your reputation back? And could this have happened? Could the 14-year-old kiss undress deal have happened? I mean, I don't think you know whether it happened, just no more than I do. I mean, we just can't know. We can't know it happened.
Exactly,
we can't know
right.
it didn't happen.
You're right. We don't know. And what I look at is his record over decades. I do live in the Gadsden area, so, I've been familiar with his reputation. I've been to some of his rallies. I know what he stands for. And so what we have is a choice to either go with a conservative who will vote with Trump's agenda against, for the border wall, to also repeal Obamacare, or we can go with a Democrat who has already stated he is, pro-abortion right up to the day before the birth, and that's a great concern.
Yeah, I think that the infanticide, which Doug Jones supports, is so depraved and so it's heartbreaking. It's unconscionable.
Yes.
That's on the other side of this equation, and there are a lot of people who've already voted in this race absentee, and many have voted for Roy Moore. He's up in some of these polls. What do you think will happen just as to the psyche of the Alabama voters if Roy Moore stays in it and he wins it?
Yes.
And then they refuse to seat him or they vote to expel him from the Senate, which I believe they could very well do. What will that do? What will that accomplish?
Well, it would create drastic confusion, and number one, because nothing will have been proven against him. So it would be my understanding they would be unseating him, expelling him, I would suppose, based on a rumor. And that sets a very dangerous precedent for Congress.
Well, I think when you have a situation where Congress now, it turns out, is paying out $15 million worth of settlements with people who've accused members of Congress and their staff of sexual and other workplace misconduct.
Yes.
Yeah, that came out. We did that last night on the Ingraham Angle, Pastor Knight. No one's hands are really clean here. I mean, look, we're all sinners, and I say this, every day when I pray that God forgive me for what I've done and what I failed to do, what I've in my thoughts and in my deeds. But there seems to be an attempt to use this Roy Moore scandal to obviate responsibility that the Republicans have on other issues. Like Roy Moore is a convenient scapegoat in a way. I mean,
Yes.
See, I'm not as charitable toward Moore as you are. I mean, I don't know what happened, but I'm looking at this just as a pragmatic thing now. I mean, you have to take emotions out of this.
Yeah.
Pragmatically, how will this affect the entire Republican Party? Pragmatically, how will this all go down? And I just it's a huge distraction.
Remember, Laura,
right now.
we were having some of these same conversations about now President Trump a little over a year ago, and America had to make a choice: are we going to base our decision off of some accusations from the past, or will we look at the record, at least publicly, of an individual and the potential for that person to serve us? And I do believe, from all the knowledge that I have currently, that Judge Moore would be our best choice as senator. We talked about, or you just mentioned, how that many of us have sinned, and that you ask the Lord to forgive you. And the thing is, with Roy Moore, let's say that, and I don't know if he did this 30, 40 years ago, but if he did, and yet all we have to see is the record of the last 30, 40 years, to me, that is proof of what God can do through a person who turns themselves completely over to Jesus Christ. And again, I am not saying he's guilty. I'm just saying that I question the motive of individuals who would wait about a month before the Senate election to come out with information that the only thing it could possibly do is destroy this man and attack his family. And that's not the love of Christ at all.
I think you make a great point, and I'm of the view that the people of Alabama should make this choice.
Yes.
I don't think Washington D.C. can make these decisions 30 years later. Now, I think Judge Moore did not do himself much good in that Sean Hannity interview. I can tell you that. If I were advising him, I would have advised him not to do that interview, because he came off as a little halting on the dating the teenagers, and I had to ask their mother's permission. And when you're 32 years old, and I have a problem with 32-year-old adult men dating 17 and 16-year-olds. I think that's a red flag in my book. You wouldn't get through my front door with my daughter. So
and we're free to have
that.
free to have those opinions. And of course, thank the Lord, we have the choice whether our daughters would be allowed to date someone at that age. But once again, we go back to the main point. These are decades old conversations, accusations, situations. And so what Alabama is basing our vote on, I hope as a whole, is we have seen the record of Judge Moore time and time and time again. And even when his career was on the line, he stood with the U.S. Constitution, he stood with the Word, and what we have witnessed is he stood with morality.
Pastor, I really appreciate your sharing your perspective. We want to get all viewpoints on this issue that is still dominating the headlines. Pastor Michael Knight of the New Haven Church in Southside, Alabama. Pastor Knight, you take care. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving with your family.
You too. God bless you.
All right, we'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Will Roy Moore survive this? Should he? And what of these leadership types in Washington who say, well, he arrives here and we're going to send him packing? What will that do? And what will that accomplish? 855-40-LAURA.
The Laura Ingraham Show.